You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, marketer and publicist in the cannabis industry. Curio Wellness has been operating in Maryland's medical market since 2016 and recently flipped their stores to adult use. They are a family-owned vertical operation and are on the move with expansion plans by offering franchise opportunities with their foreign daughter dispensary business model. They expanded cultivation facilities into Minnesota as a stepping stone into that state, and their scientific advisory board is behind the development of patented products, and they are active on Capitol Hill by educating lawmakers on the benefits of the plant. Today we meet Wendy Bronfein, co-founder and policy director at Curio Wellness. One thing that really stood out when I was researching Foreign Daughter and Curio is that I know, a lot of medical dispensaries position themselves as health focused, of course, but I feel like Curio takes it to a higher level by including the spa with the massage, the acupuncture, pharmacist. It's just like, I feel like you guys pushed it to, a higher level. So, I just think that's really great to draw people in. But if you could just give us an overview of the Maryland marketplace for those of us who don't know, and who's your cannabis consumer, that kind of thing. If you could just give us an overview of your operations in Maryland.
Sure. So Maryland's cannabis program began in 2016 was when they authorized the first round of licenses. And actually today is the day in 2017 when dispensaries first opened. And our company was the first to deliver products to those, I believe it was like 7 dispensaries that were open around the state. And so we were in a medical program, a very flourishing medical program, until June 30th of this year, at which point on July 1st, we transitioned to medical and adult use. So from the medical side, which remains today, it's a very broad program in terms of access, and that was intentional, and I think what made it very strong, because there wasn't a lot of obstacles between the patient and the provider in accessing the program, and there wasn't a very restrictive list or sort of you didn't have to be in a very kind of end of life scenario with respect to your health to be a candidate for the medical program. So we had a lot of access, ease of access, and broad participation. When we added adult use, it became your traditional adults over 21. I think that many people, as that approached, really kind of hone in on adult use as being kind of a social access, and that is definitely there. But it is clearly very therapeutic in nature as well. If you stand inside the dispensary for any amount of time, you're hearing people talk about things like not sleeping well. This time of year, you're hearing a lot of what I would refer to as like social anxieties and stressors, right? I got family coming over, I got people coming in, like all of that anxiety of the holiday season. We've seen that all through medical. We're seeing it again now in adult use. People who have aches and pains, some of all of the same audiences that were, just what aging does to you, whether it's sort of, it sounds terrible, but sort of like the expected deterioration, or like the more detrimental kind of conditions that you could acquire, disease states and things like that. So all those things are present. I think you just have people who either weren't aware of medical, who didn't want to be signed up in a program, and are coming into adult use. I think what we are hopeful to see is that the medical program will begin to climb up again as we adopt new adult use consumers, because in Maryland, when you're medical, you do not pay tax. You have access to the entire menu, which means different product forms and higher dosage products. And you are also, in most cases, served first at a dispensary, right? So you have priority service when you're shopping. If you're adult use, you have a 9% tax. Your products are restricted in form and potency. You can only have up to 10 milligrams per serving and 100 milligrams per package. So I believe, as a as a company that's believes in the therapeutics of the plant, I think we're hopeful to see that those who have found us through adult use will migrate to medical and see the plethora of what's out there. And also it's better for their pocketbooks as well.
Yeah, I've been recently hearing other people, tout the benefits of the medical program, based on, no taxes, and I didn't even think about, but the higher THC doses. So, they might just migrate over to that because you can't get that in the regular market anywhere.
Coming in that sector is, so there's a couple products we make that are in this sort of therapeutic line. A product called Good Night, that's a pulse release tablet that we developed with our scientific board, that we in adult use, we have to sell it in a 10 pack, because in a 10 count, you hit that cap of 100 milligrams. Now, we wouldn't consider necessarily a tablet, quote, an edible, but it's kind of it's falling under that. It's being captured in that area. Now, if you're on the medical side, you could buy a 30 count, a month's supply, right? Which, if you're using it nightly to sleep, is a useful way to buy the product. If you're on adult use, you're forced to buy multiple packages to sustain your need, which is also less cost effective. Same thing with our topical Move, which is on the medical side. I mean, on the adult use side, you can only buy it at 100 to 100. We make it at 150 to 150. Of course, you're not consuming it, and it's not psychoactive. So you really shouldn't be constrained, but because of the regulatory regime, you are. So there's products that you lack access to that have package level potency that is higher, that are just restrictive, but are beneficial to everyone, and really not about getting more and more high, so to speak.
Right. Some people just have a high tolerance level to it also, and that's just what they need to even get to a good level, not high. And how is it working in the stores now that you're combining the rec and the medical? Like, I know you're saying that they get first priority and this and that, but how is the flow and the same? It's a different mindset really when you're going in there. How is that working now that you are in it?
So it's a single stream system in the sense that all dispensaries became serviceable to both sectors. We don't have medical dispensaries versus adult use dispensaries. We just have dispensaries. In the law, it was provisioned that a dispensary either needs to give priority access to medical people or have hours of service that are purely dedicated to medical. I believe most stores operate with the priority method. That's how we do it. Beyond that, it's really not very different. Everyone needs to show an ID when they enter. Medical people are validated to be in the program, which gives them that broader menu and the no tax experience and the priority service. And adult use are validated to be 21 and then put into the queue. And even if you went on to, say, the dispensary's website now, there's a tab and you can toggle between rec and medical. So you can see the different SKUs that appear to you. You can only access the medical if you can support that with your patient ID number. But overall, the experience is really very much the same. I think what we think about is, particularly from like an education and a branding standpoint, is everything is new again, right? We kind of are like, it's 2017, 2018 again, right? Because there's so many people who are coming in who haven't been in the program with us. And I often refer to like the menu at the dispensary, kind of like the Cheesecake Factory. Like it's a huge menu. There's so many choices, and it can be overwhelming for patients or customers who have never been in the store, and you think you're looking for one item and you have like 100 plus to choose from, right? You just don't know where to begin. So we've always been very focused on trying to educate people on the basics, understanding the endocannabinoid system and why these products are working inside your body and they can be effective, what cannabinoids are, what terpenes are, and then aligning the product with the person. Here in Maryland, when you buy a product, there's a label on that shows you from the test results the cannabinoids, major and minor, and the terpenes that appear in the product. And so you really, as you begin to try products, you can really understand why something is good for you by virtue of that label. Like, you know what, when there's a presence of CBG, it's more effective for me. When I see these terpenes, I'm getting the results I'm looking for. I think a lot of people don't realize that the nuance of when they say, well, I want my mood uplifted, or I want to help relax, or I deal with inflammation. I don't think a lot of people realize which cannabinoids and or terpenes are impacting those results, and that if you understand that by trial and error or from guidance from experts like us, you can really pinpoint the right products to solve your problems or create the experience that you want. And then as you shop, you can really self-select, because when you look at the menu and it gives you that feedback on what's in there, you know exactly what you're looking for and can find the products you'll like the best.
And it's so exciting for the future of minor cannabinoids. I'm so excited about that whole future. But how are beverages doing in Maryland or in your store? I don't know how many producers you have yet in that phase, but it's curious how that's doing.
That is not a dominant area in the state due to how the program shifted when we became adult use. So the primary, I would say, liquid suspension that existed pre-adult use was a product we make that's by Dixie called an elixir. It's a full-size bottle, but the cap has a serving line, so it's 17 doses per bottle inside there. But that product itself, even though it can be 100 milligrams per serving in the bottle, has been relegated to the medical only sector, because it was determined that things that are in a liquid state need to be in containers that have no more than 10 mLs per bottle. So we don't have much of a beverage market now because of that. And that's an arbitrary decision. Our law did not prescribe how potent dosage forms were relegated to the regulator to determine that. And this is a decision that they made that the industry has been very much pushing back on, because I think, as you're mentioning, you do see infused beverages commonly in this industry on the adult use side. And you see them in more traditional volumes, right? Like oftentimes, like if you're using an aluminum can, that would be your volume. You could control the potency of that, but that would be the scale of the beverage. And here we've been forced to a much smaller scale, which is kind of eliminated beverages as a category at this time. I think you'll start to see things come on, but they become more of like, small, for lack of a better term, like shot size servings versus a beverage. And I think that's to the detriment, because for those people who may be considering it as a social uplifter or relaxant, right, as opposed to having a glass of wine or drinking a beer, it's nice to have something that you can hold that feels akin to what other people are having in volume, but you're just sort of socializing in a different way. And I think we all know that alcohol is far more dangerous than cannabis anyway.
And is that something that can be mixed into a drink? I mean, that's one of my favorite consumption, or new products that I see coming out there, where, like you said, it's like in a shot formula.
Yeah. We do have some on the market that we've had since medical, where they're either like the squirt dropper bottles, where like if you had like a water or something and you add it, and then also like the tear off little powder packets where you would add it to a volume. Yes. Yeah, there's some activated options for sure.
Yeah, I think those will be huge in the future. I feel like I hear a lot of people in the industry excited about Maryland, the market coming up in Maryland. Why is that? And do you think there's other policies that are needed to improve? I mean, I think we all need policy, improvement, but what do you think is needed in the Maryland market, or what do you like and what do you think is needed, I guess?
So I think what we've seen in terms of the functionality of the market since July 1st, that where there's areas for improvement, would be one, previous to adult use, we had regulations on advertising that were fulsome and allowed us to effectively market our businesses, and without any sort of incident or obscenity in doing so for the previous 5 years. When we changed to adult use, advertising was moved from a regulatory space to the law itself. and became much more restrictive. And so I think the market is not as large as what people expected, whether you're actually operating inside of it, or if, the consultants who told the legislator how large and how great the opportunity was going to be. That's not what's happening here. I mean, we've tracked just inside of $90 million in sales month over month. If you compare us to a state like Missouri, which came online in February and has virtually the same number of adults over 21 with a lower median income, they track at $30 million more month over month than we do. And I think that's really due to, one, the lack of advertising. I think there's a lack of awareness. People who wanted to know, but I don't think in broad strokes people are aware that this is available to them. It's due to this product issue that from a regulatory perspective, certain products were left on the medical side and not available to adult use. And many of those are products that I think, while they were always here as medical, most people would find to be much more adult use oriented, like beverages, like concentrates, infused pre-rolls, these elixirs, all these things are only for medical. And then the last is the curbside service. So there has been what many have seen as an arbitrary decision that curbside remains only for medical patients and not for adult use, which is sort of, an unequal access, right? You could be equally infirmed or inconvenienced or disabled that having your car brought to your car is of use to you as an adult use consumer, as a patient. And so we're hopeful that in the side of the next year, we're going to see these three things corrected, which I think would allow this program to really fully realize its potential.
Okay, great. Wow. All these little things really add up. That's for sure. So I also, am impressed with this, scientific advisory board that you have. And I just wanted to touch base on that a little bit. Is you won your first patent for a sleep product, I think, that you mentioned earlier. And is this based on the proprietary pulse release doses? Because I don't think you can. Is that what the patent is on in your product?
Correct. That product has secured 2 patents. We have patent pending for another product called Good Day, which is the sister to Good Night, a daytime formulation for focus and anxiety and energy, and as well as a product called GI Comfort that is targeted towards individuals with IBS, IBD, and Crohn's. All of those products use this concept of pulse release inside of a tablet, working different ways relative to the product that it's attached to. And it is that method that we are patenting. The chair of our scientific advisory board is a noted pharmacologist. He holds the patent on Adderall XR. So he's an expert in these pulse systems. And so that's what we're using in these different applications. So with sleep, it was about how can you fall and stay asleep, right? When we surveyed patients at the time to understand what was going on with sleep, what they were using that was either prescription, over-the-counter, or methods of cannabis, it was, I can't fall asleep, I can't stay asleep. And some people had one or the other, and a lot of people had both. And so the pulse approach there was, let's take the right blend of cannabinoids, let's put them in a pulse that will allow someone to take it 30 minutes before bed, help them fall asleep, and then give them a second pulse 3 hours later that would help them stay asleep. And when we did a trial that was independent of ourselves in partnership with Sleep Score, what we saw was not only did people sleep more, but they reported feeling more well-rested, they napped less, and if they had disruptive events like getting up to go to the bathroom or something in the middle of the night, they were able to go back to sleep. They were no longer instances it's like, I got up to go to the bathroom and then I was done. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. So it really kind of restored that hygiene, if you will. Now with the GI product, it's an entirely different approach to the pulse. Here, we're looking for this tablet that is built with a lot of CBG, a little bit of CBD, and a very tiny bit of THC. So it's a highly functional pill to be able to take during the day to help manage these conditions. This is being released deep in the bowel in a pulse system. So it knows where to get into your body before it begins to release the medicine, and then uses a pulse system to sustain those effects for you. So, and that's been, yeah. So, I mean, I think our vision in entering this company in this sector with our company was, how can we normalize cannabis and use the active ingredients from the plant to create therapeutic solutions that will improve quality of life? And knowing that in these instances where they're much more condition based, like GI issues or sleep issues, we know that doctors typically are looking for data and facts to support something, to feel comfortable about it. That's how they've been educated. That's how they've been trained by pharmaceutical companies. So we needed to be able to build things that were credible, that we could clinically trial. That GI product is going into a clinical trial in the new year with a gastroenterology practice here in Maryland, so that we can further substantiate it and we can continue to normalize this conversation, because I don't think that we can overcome a lot of the hurdles that we have with regulators and legislators on state and federal levels until we have like facts to dispute a lot of the myths that are out there.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we need. And that's what I found so impressive about your company also, that you're taking this on and moving us forward in this direction, because this is where we need to go to convince these lawmakers. Do you have to have any special permits, licenses to be doing this R&D, or does it fall under the Curio company? Because that's been the problem in the industry, is federal law prohibits these kind of clinical trials, or it's very hard to do.
So when we did the sleep trial under the medical regime, we enlisted an independent investigator, so a doctor who was attached to the study itself outside of us. And then we worked with a company called SleepScore that has a device that can monitor your sleeping. And anyone who participated in the trial was given this bedside device that could read their sleep patterns and give quantitative information on how they slept. But aside from the regulatory piece of the puzzle, which was you needed to come to our dispensary to be dispensed the cannabis in order to participate in the trial, after that point, we were not involved in it. And then once the trial window was completed, the data was given back to us from SleepScore to show, did we do what we thought we could do, and could we commercialize this product, which is what we did. Now, it is not a, phase 4 clinical trial from an FDA perspective, because to your point, we can't do those things. And even by virtue of our own regulations at the time, we couldn't do something from a placebo perspective, because the law required us to put the label to show the lab results. So when you were taking the product, you knew there was this much THC and this much CBN, and you were very aware of what your dose was. Moving forward with the GI, inside of the adult use bill, there was more legislation passed that has expanded our ability in this industry to study inside the state, to partner with institutions. We have great institutions here like University of Maryland and Hopkins, MedStar, LifeBridge, NIH, like tons of healthcare in this state. So we're able to now go forward in this GI study in a different way, where we're working with the medical practice directly on it, where we would be able to do placebo controlled, right, for the purposes of the study, be able to blind things to have a more true look at the product. So that has been a regulatory hurdle we've overcome on the state level to further fine tune the ability to research and effectively report on the success of a product or its effectiveness. I think what we're doing here, what we're looking to do with in now being able with the new law to work with institutions will get us closer to that, because before, the institutions here really couldn't do much. If they were going to technically work with the plant in any way, they would have had to get it from the University of Mississippi, which we all know is not reflective of the products that are in legal markets that companies like us and others are growing and producing. So I don't think that data set is sort of accurate relative to what people are getting when they're purchasing legally through medical or adult use. And what we're doing, what the law has expanded now would allow the institutions here to work with the materials that are coming from the state. So I think it's something that we'll see happening in the years to come. We do have partner research with Clemson University from a cultivation perspective. So in cultivation, there is an area of that called tissue culture. It's very common across traditional horticulture and has made its way over to cannabis. The foremost expert is at Clemson University, and we have been in a research partnership with them. In their state and their location, they can conduct the part of the study that looks at hemp. And in our facility, we're doing the side of it that works with the cannabis. And then their PhD candidate comes to us as part of that program to witness and participate in the cannabis side, whereas when they're back at school, they're on the hemp side. And we intend to publish those findings together on this tissue culture research. But again, that's a kind of clear example where states have competing regulations or laws. So we've worked together where we can do one side and they can do the other.
Right. Coming here from New York, Cornell University is also very active in the cultivation programs and working in research partnerships. I think if I was a dispensary owner, I think that would just be such a great program to be part of, so I would love to talk about the franchise operations of Far and Daughter. And I know that you've been trying to, set up this model in Maryland and other places, and just wanted to hear what your, how that's going. And I know you've set up a fund, the company has set up a fund. And I just feel that it's such an important business model that we could use to uplift social equity entrepreneurs in the industry, to give them the hand holding that they need. But earlier you told me that you were having problems getting this program off the ground. Just wanted to hear about that.
Yes. So we began this process back in 2018. And the concept of it was as states look to expand licensing and expand opportunity of individuals to be licensees, being an operator here in Maryland where we cultivate, we process, we have a dispensary, and by virtue of being a cultivator and a processor, we sell to 91 of the 93 dispensaries in the state. We really had perspective on both sides of the business, and we knew that running a dispensary itself was is not an easy task. It is not just as simple as, hey, I've been in retail, I could do a dispensary. There's a lot of branding, marketing, compliance, logistics, all these pieces that are very nuanced, and a heavy capital lift more than sort of a traditional retail. And then on the wholesale side, we could see the variety of operators that were out there and who had ease at getting up and running and who found it to be more difficult, as well as the hurdles that you come into from local zoning and finding real estate and all these types of things. So we kind of came up with this concept of, what if we took the model that we have that is working and has proven to be effective, and we turn it into a franchise, so that those who enter the sector don't have to figure it all out, because there's a lot of pieces to figure out relative to just running your business, but then also remaining compliant, and then navigating the real estate and the zoning piece and the site selection, because you're cannabis and you're looking for that location. And so we kind of went through the process of creating that franchise model. Simultaneously, the other piece of that puzzle was capital, right? There's a cost of capital is very high in this business. You cannot just go get a loan from a bank because we're Schedule 1. It's mostly private investment that exists here. And so we were like, we should create a fund that could support these entrepreneurs to get them the startup capital to open one of our franchises. And then I think the third level, which is often not talked about, is there was also discussion around the opportunities for women and minorities to invest in this sector, not just to be licensees and operators or employed, but to actually reap the investment value of this. And so the fund itself has a very high percentage of investors who are women and minorities investing in women and minorities, right? And so the fund itself was established, the franchise was approved, and we kicked that off. We have a franchisee who is in the early stages with regards to real estate, site selection, location, all that stuff, zoning, in New Jersey. And then we have a franchisee who is weeks or actually days away from opening in Mississippi. We were very eager to really realize this in Maryland when we knew adult use was coming, because we knew inside of medical, there were no new licenses at that time. But with the advent of adult use, there would be licenses added to the program. And so we thought we can bring our program and our dollars here to our home state. Unfortunately, the law was drafted in a way that not only precludes the access to our millions of dollars in our fund, which could support multiple franchisees here in Maryland, but it also precludes the structure of a franchise, because when you have a franchise, you're getting like this business in a box, right? So we're giving you guidance on how you operate. We're giving you the branding and marketing tools. There's a whole manual that lets you figure out how to do this without having to actually figure it out, right? You focus on running your business, being a great owner operator and a member of the community and building your team, but you don't have to figure out every piece of this puzzle. But the way that the law was structured and how control was defined, it doesn't allow somebody to use that toolkit. So we are hopeful that in the next session, we can see that change to be able to advance this opportunity here in Maryland. I should also say that the way that this was structured was really, to use like a colloquialism, would be more of like a Kickstarter, right? So if you are a benefactor of the fund, you have to, you would buy out the fund and resume full control. You always have majority control. You always have a 60% control of the business. The fund just takes a 40% stake, but you would have 100% control once you buy out the fund from your original loan. And that needs to happen in as little as 3 years or as many as 7. So it's really just there as a launch pad, and it's set up at very favorable rates to be a support system for people to get up and running, right? It's not, if you hear about people actually being able to access capital from a loan structure in this industry, they're at extremely high interest rates. That's not how this is set up. We were really looking to be innovative in solving a problem that we could kind of permeate across multiple states that were expanding their programs, that were creating social equity opportunities. But to be honest, it has been very hard because many of the state programs have laws that are very restrictive to the access to this. So it's been a lot of push and pull to make it happen. So, best laid plans, I guess.
That's such a shame when everybody's struggling to find these social equity programs that could really work. And what more do you need than hand-holding? I mean, it's so messed up. It really is. So you have your main store or your store in Maryland, a franchise in New Jersey coming up, in Mississippi. And then did you also launch just another expansion of your Maryland store into Missouri? Is that what I read? Or
so Missouri is so our brand, our company is Curio Wellness, and that is the brand that all of the products we produce under cultivation and processing, they sit under Curio Wellness. Our retail brand is called Far and Daughter, which is Swedish for father and daughter. And that's a nod to our roots, as my father and I started the company, and we are a family owned and operated business. I work with my dad, my sister, and my brother. So the Far and Daughter is here in Maryland, and then as well as in these franchise opportunities. Curio Wellness is what is set to launch very soon in Missouri. That will be, we have a 130,000 square foot cultivation and manufacturing building that is set to go online very soon, and we'll be entering that market. I do think that we're hopeful to see opportunity to bring Far and Daughter there as well, but we'll be coming to the state first with our wholesale business.
Oh, okay.
So all the products we talked about will be coming: the GI, the Good Night, the Good Day, our award-winning chews, our vapes. We'll be starting with everything from the processor side as our cultivation side of our business completes its construction. And then in the second half of the year, we'll bring cultivation online in Missouri.
Wow, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
It sounds exciting, though. So I've also heard a lot. I've been hearing a lot of from people about using MSAs, master service agreements, to use as an expansion strategy instead of having to go into a state and get a whole license and blah 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 blah. And I know that you had worked with. In New Jersey with the senator there, Senator Singleton, on the legislation to allow companies to come in and enable those partnerships. And I'm just wondering, is that a strategy that you think you might use as far as expansion? And what do you think the pros and cons are about that?
So in Maryland during medical, we saw a lot of operators use a management service agreement as dispensaries sort of started to, dispensaries got up and running, found it was more difficult, found a seasoned partner, went into a managed service agreement, things like that. The bills that we had passed in New Jersey were directly related to the franchise and fund, not to a management service agreement. So we worked with Senator Singleton and Assemblywoman Jackson initially to pass a bill when the program was medical, which allowed us the fund specifically, because it was about how much, typically when you look at cannabis programs, there's a certain percentage stake that you can take as an investor in a single license, and you can't be across multiple licenses. And so the fund is not an individual, it's an entity. And so we wanted to be able to support more than one franchisee. I should say that, since we launched that program, we've had over 1,000 applicants, and we've had several from New Jersey. But the way that the law was structured, we could only support one with the fund. So we had worked previously to pass this bill that when they were medical allowed us to support up to 7. And so going into, as they went into adult use, we went through the process again with the legislative team to take that existing law and tweak it so that it applied to medical and adult use. And the governor signed that earlier this year. So now we would be able to facilitate the fund and the franchise to up to 7 individuals in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, fantastic. That's fantastic. So I guess winding down, what is the future plans? Where are you going after this? What's the vision for Far and Daughter, Curio? I mean, you're doing so much, I wouldn't even know how to break it off, but what is the next stage?
So obviously very near term here is we look to continue to lead in Maryland, in our home state, where we've been the leader since this program began. This is also our hub where all of our product innovation is happening. So there's a lot of different products we're talking about, and our scientific board is working behind the scenes on. As we enter Missouri, looking to grow inside that market and bring our suite of products. In meeting dispensary partners there, as we've prepared to come on board, we're eager to enter because it sounds like a lot of this differentiation that we've focused on is going to be appreciated there. Products like ours don't necessarily exist, and even the ones that do, when we bring our flower, we have very high quality, high testing flower, and with respect to THC, terpenes, and minor cannabinoids. I think that's kind of outsized from what we see from the other growers there. And then just the quality of our manufactured products. We're also CGMP. I didn't mention that. That's good manufacturing practices. It's a certification that most FDA products in the country fall under, for food and pharma and cosmetics. And so we're CGMP certified here. We'll be CGMP certified in Missouri. I believe there's only one other company in Missouri who has that status. We recently became Good Agricultural Collective Practices certified here. So it's sort of the cultivation side of that. Our facility earned that. So these are all standards that go far beyond what is required by a state, but really normalize us to where we believe we will go when things are corrected on the federal level. And we have to answer to a higher authority. We'll continue to look for expansion opportunities for both Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter. And the other part of my job is a lot of the public policy space. So, my number one goal is the eradication of 280E, doing a lot of work on the federal level to advise and focus Congress on moving policy that will address this. That is what really holds this industry back in terms of its ability to realize the investments, return invested capital, reinvest in our companies, provide further for our employees and innovate. And I think it's really the piece that needs to be fixed to move things forward. It's also the piece that will make all these social equity programs much more valuable, right? If people can realize the full profit potential and not pay 70, 80, 90% corporate tax rate, and many of their profits just go back to the federal government, and in some cases the state government, that really changes the trajectory, and I think makes this worthwhile. It's a very hard business to be in because it's highly constrained. So that is a lot of my work on the day-to-day. We'd love to see cannabis be descheduled, to be governed under the Federal Food and Drug Cosmetic Act, akin to a dietary supplement as it pertains to those of us who exist in the current ecosystem. And that would then open also cannabis up to the pharma companies if they want to go further, if they want to get into clinical trials and real pharmaceutical development. But for those of us who exist in state-based systems, it would legitimize us. It would take away all of these constraints, and it would allow us to function at a higher level inside our existing system.
And what does that mean, like on a daily or weekly basis? Are you calling senators or, arranging meetings to demonstrate what you're doing?
Yeah.
Scientific level and stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, so it means working with partners like noted firms in DC who represent us, who help us draft white papers that really bring facts and data to the conversation, and circulating that amongst key players on the Hill and across federal agencies and the White House and that administration. Yes, it is having meetings. I have a meeting this afternoon with a congressional office. Both, I do it on Zoom. I go, being in Maryland, I'm in proximity, I go there. So yeah, it's a hard charged effort to be in front of people and to have this conversation and to let them see kind of how normal this business is and break the myths. I strongly encourage every congressional office that I speak to get on the train. They'll be here, inside of 45 minutes and come see these facilities that we have. Our grow is 160,000 square feet indoor, hygienic, GACP certified. Our manufacturing is 30,000 square feet of GMP manufacturing. I think it is not what people expect. It is very regimented. It is very precise. And it is the future. And so all the myths need to be busted and we need to be realized for, we're a vibrant industry. We're making products that improve people's quality of life, and we are dramatically contributing to local and state economies. So we need to be seen for who we are.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a great way to end. That is really perfect. I just have to say, I'm so impressed with Curio and everything you're doing, and you guys are obviously leaders in moving this industry forward, and it's so great to see because I hope we all make it. And really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining me today.